right, good afternoon, boys and girls. Like I said, my name is Laura Vadrine, and I'm a 5th and 6th grade ELA teacher at Sally Humble Elementary in Monroe. So if you tuned into our first portion, we were talking about writing a personal narrative, and we also went into writing your introduction. So what I need you to go do, I'm going to give you just a few seconds to go gather all your materials. You need your writing utensil, you need your single paragraph outline for your introduction so that we can build onto that with our body paragraph this afternoon in our lesson. So I'm going to give you just a second, go get all your materials together and come back and watch. Alright, while everybody's getting settled back in, I'm going to start talking about kind of our opening activity that we're going to do. This is called the power of 3. So what I did here is I have 3 different prompts, and then I've got 3 ideas that go with it. This is just getting our brain going. This really doesn't have anything to do with our personal narrative that we're writing. This is just to get our brains going because you might have been doing math, science, social studies. You've got to get into ELA mode. All right, so I'm going to pick number 3. This is just a fun prompt that we're going to talk about. So number 3 says, a mysterious package was delivered to you with the treasure map. Briefly describe your adventure without the ending. So all we're going to do is put different ideas that goes with this prompt. What could be included in this story? So for the first one, you can be writing with me as I write on the board. So for the first one, I'm going to say, a mysterious package was delivered to you with a treasure map. Maybe I grabbed my shoes and headed outside. That's just one idea that we could use. Maybe for the second one, I jumped on my bike, with the treasure map, of course, and my bike started to fly. I want you to think of the third one. What could you possibly write about with no ending yet that happens when a mysterious package was delivered to you with a treasure map? Think of a third one. Okay, once you have that written down, keep these in mind. You want, as you're writing your body paragraph, you want to have the ending in mind, but you don't want to spoil it for the readers. All right, let's talk about your body paragraphs. Creating your body paragraphs. This is the meat of your story. I know some teachers use the hamburger technique for writing. Think about this as your meat, your cheese, your lettuce, your mayonnaise, all that inside of your sandwich. So in your body paragraph, you've got to create suspense. You've got to hold that reader's attention. This shows feelings of an excited or anxious state. Okay, maybe you have butterflies in your story, in your stomach. Just like Ms. Keys talked about idioms, maybe you have butterflies in your stomach. Why should you create suspense? Well, it makes the story interesting. Nobody wants to read a story that doesn't have anything exciting happening. And then what is the climax? This is the highest peak of excitement of the story. You finally get to the point, and then you start wrapping up your ideas. All right, here's a cute anchor chart that I'm going to use about crafting the plot. A lot of students get setting and plot confused. So I'm going to kind of break down what's in the plot for narrative writing specifically. So the author crafts a plot too, and we're going to start down here. Introduce characters, setting, and problems. That's in your introduction. Develop characters and events. So throughout your story and your body paragraph, you're going to kind of build on those characters. Maybe you add in a few other characters, and you add in your events that are taking place. This increases suspense, and I'm going to give you a really good example in just a second. Then you reach the climax. This is the point of view, the highest emotion, or there might be tension. Maybe something's happening. Then finally you have your resolution. The problem is being solved. You can also have your falling action. Those are things that kind of start taking place as you're wrapping everything up. So keep this in mind as we start our body paragraph. Here's my example. I think Miss Keys read you a story about Cinderella. This is the basic story of Cinderella. It doesn't have anything different that strays off the normal path. Just wanted to give you an example so that you didn't have to have the story in front of you. So think about Cinderella. What characters are in Cinderella? You have Cinderella herself. You have the stepsisters and the stepmother. There are a few others, but these are the ones I'm going to name for now. So the author develops these characters throughout the story. The stepsisters and stepmom are mean to Cinderella. They make her do chores. They don't want her to go to the ball. All that kind of stuff. Then we have suspense. Here's another character that's added in, the fairy godmother. Cinderella goes to the ball. The clock strikes 12. Cinderella loses her shoes. All these kind of get you, oh no, what's going to happen? On the other side, we have the rising action. This is when the prince and Cinderella dances. They dance together. They're like, oh, she's met someone new. There's another character being introduced. This is all in the body. Then we have our climax. The prince is looking for the right foot to fit the shoe, so he's going around. He tries the shoe on the stepsister's feet, and then he finally tries it on Cinderella's foot. Will Cinderella get to try on the shoe? Or will the prince find her? Does he know where she's at? Will the stepsisters tell him where she's at? These are all good examples of what you need to include in your body paragraph to keep the reader or your audience interested. All right, let's talk about character traits. So we just kind of talked about Cinderella, what goes in your body paragraph, but you've got to be able to describe your characters in detail. What we're going to do is I'm going to go back to my topic that I talked about in the first video with the shelf falling and shattering a window. So I have 3 characters like I showed you in the chart from the previous lesson. I have myself, my mom, and my dad. So I'm going to do Vadrine. That's me. We have mom. And we have dad. Let's think about some character traits about each of these characters and how we want to explain them in the story. So for me, I'm tall, red hair. You can be writing this on your sheet of paper as well, and I just have a little face outlined on my paper. You can just do bullet points, whatever is easiest for you. I've got freckles. And I'm going to say 23 years old. Now let's talk about mom, okay? In this case, mom has brown hair. She's short and tan skin. You can write about any of your characters that you have. Now let's talk about dad. He has dark hair. He's tall. And he wears glasses. These are all things that you can use to describe your characters in your body paragraph. You may have described yourself in the introduction, and if you did, that's perfect. But you don't want to add in your other characters until you get later into your story. So I'm going to give you a second, write down your characters and your narrative, and add the descriptions. Maybe you have your brother or sister, your grandfather or grandmother. Maybe you're talking about your pets or your teacher. Write down some characteristics that they have. All right, now we're moving into our middle, or our body SPO, single paragraph outline. This looks just like what we did for beginning our introduction, but we're going to add details from the middle of the story, the body of the story, the meat of the story. I'm going to quickly read you another excerpt from Saturdays and Tea Cakes by Lester Laminack that I read in the first session. I read the introduction to you in the first section. I'm going to read the middle for you so you can kind of get some ideas from this author's point of view. Every Saturday, Mama called out, come on into this house. Let's have a bite to eat. Notice already dialogue. In Mama's big kitchen, sunlight poured through the windows like a waterfall and spilled over the countertop, pooling over the checkered floor. Every Saturday, she had hot biscuits, sweet butter, and Golden Eagle syrup waiting on the kitchen table. Every Saturday, she poured a little coffee in my cup and filled the rest with milk and 2 spoonfuls of sugar. Then, before long, Mama said, "We best clear these dishes away and get at that yard before it gets too hot." I followed her out to the back porch. "Let me put a little water on these ferns," she said. "You go on ahead to the house." That's what Mama called the garage. "I'll be out directly." Think about what can you put in your body paragraph. Notice there was dialogue from what I just read. There's descriptions of where they're at in the setting. It says every Saturday in Mama's big kitchen, so we know that she has a big kitchen and sunlight is pouring through the windows. So let's think, what could we put in our story? Mine is going to be the shattered window, so I'm going to write up here, if I can write correctly. Because remember, the shelf fell on our shattered window. So go ahead and let's write out our single paragraph outline. You have your topic sentence, your 3 details, and your closing sentence. I'm going to give you a second to copy this down, and I'm going to help you kind of start off your story with your body paragraph. Okay, let's look at our topic sentence for our body paragraph. What could we put to kind of start the story off? What are we building into? What can we create suspense in our climax, and then we'll have our resolution at the end? For my topic sentence, I'm going to use, "I knew something bad had just happened." This is right when I heard the window shatter from outside. I knew something bad had just happened. Then what happens? I knew something bad had just happened. Let's think about what details can we add into the middle to kind of create that suspense for the audience. So as Mom and I walk into the house and we see the shattered window, first we see footprints, we see, I'm going to do a slash mark, just like we did in our note-taking stills, footprints and crumbs on the floor. I knew something bad had just happened. Footprints and crumbs on the floor. Then what happens? Next, I yell for Dad. Then what happens? I'm going to do an arrow. He doesn't answer. So I'm standing in the kitchen. I see footprints, a shattered window, and crumbs all over the floor. I yell help for Dad. He doesn't come, but he was just in the living room, so I'm confused. Then what's going to happen? I walk into the living room and I find crumbs on the couch. What in the world? Where's Dad? We have a shattered window in the kitchen. There's crumbs and snacks all over the floor, and there's footprints. Now we can have our closing sentence. We're going to insert some dialogue. This is where you can have a character talking. It doesn't have to be you, the narrator. It could be your mom or your dad. In this case, it's just me right now, and I can't find Dad. Mom's still outside. So for my closing sentence, I'm going to use dialogue, and I'm going to say, in quotations, I think this may be a clue about what happened. I'm going to say, I said to myself. Notice for your topic sentence and your closing sentence, those are complete sentences. When we write our rough draft in the next lesson, you will be able to make these middle 1, 2, and 3 complete sentences. This is just getting your ideas on the page. So what I want you to do, I'm challenging you, after this video, I want you to write out your middle SPO, come up with your topic sentence, create your suspense in the middle, and then end it with your closing sentence. Hope you enjoyed this lesson. Have a good afternoon.